Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Christopher. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the Housing Program Manager at Violence Free Colorado. Today, I'm going to be presenting a quick overview of economic justice and how that impacts survivors of domestic violence. So I'm going to go ahead and get my presentation pulled up here, share my screen, and we'll go ahead and get started. So again, today we're going to be talking about economic justice work with survivors of domestic violence. So what is economic justice work? Economic justice is an umbrella term for increasing financial opportunity and stability for survivors. And you may be asking, what might this look like in your work? A lot of programs or advocates are doing financial empowerment or economic justice work and not necessarily calling it that. So I wanted to just point out what this might look like and what you might already be doing in your programs that falls under this large umbrella. This might be providing financial education opportunities in-house or working with local partners in your area that specialize in this work. It may be connecting survivors with resources related to financial opportunity in the local community. So that might be connecting someone with public benefits that they're eligible for, giving them some kind of employment support, maybe a workforce referral, something that helps them develop their workplace skills. Resources to support with basic needs, that might be something like food assistance, childcare assistance, housing assistance, transportation, or simply connecting them with resources that address these pieces in your local community. And last but not least, providing financial assistance to survivors in need. And why is economic justice work important to DV survivors and important in your work? Well, for a couple of different reasons, mainly because personal safety for survivors and economic security are inextricably linked. One cannot be achieved without the other. And domestic violence can negatively impact survivors' economic stability in a variety of ways. And we'll touch on that more in just a moment. Also, as many as 99% of survivors, so that's almost every survivor, report financial abuse as part of their experience of domestic violence. And oftentimes, less so now, but especially in the past, financial abuse was not necessarily seen as a form of domestic violence. How can programs assess for financial needs and how do they support survivors? Well, talking with survivors about their own financial stability, even though this can be incredibly uncomfortable and complex. These conversations are never easy. Everyone has different beliefs and ideas about how they should manage their finances and manage money. This could be based off of their own past experiences, their culture, messages that they receive externally from either media, family, friends, other professionals. And it's important to approach these conversations without judgment about survivors' financial situation, what they say their needs are, maybe what they say they want to achieve, and their goals. You should always let survivors lead the conversation and set their own goals and priorities related to their financial journey. And that's because they know their situation best. They know what's worked for them in the past, what hasn't. You're really, as an advocate or as a domestic violence program, you're really there to help them brainstorm ideas and really also develop a financial plan. And that, again, should be led by the survivor. So you're just there to support their goals and what they identify as their needs. And you don't have to go above and beyond what you're already doing in most cases. So if you want, you can incorporate questions about financial needs into the work that's already taking place to better support survivors. So this might mean that you chat with them about their financial needs and financial goals during intakes or case management meetings, counseling sessions, legal advocacy sessions, wherever financial stability may come up. And really, financial security and financial stability can impact folks in a variety of ways. It can also be helpful to talk to survivors about their values to determine how their spending, their savings habits, their goals align with their own internal values or not, and how they may want to move forward in that journey. Sample financial needs questions could be helpful in some of these conversations. And we have at Violence Free Colorado, we have several different tools that you may want to use, or you may want to develop your own. Just to give you an example of some of the questions that we've developed in terms of financial needs and financial support, one thing that could be helpful to ask is, how do you feel that your experiences of domestic violence have impacted your financial stability? Another could be, do you have access to money when you need it? Earned income from employment, benefits, food stamps, ATM card, credit cards, cash. You may want to ask a survivor if they have any outstanding bills, loans, or other payments in their name, and if they're able to pay for things that they need for their household. Another great question would be, what kinds of resources or financial assistance do you feel would benefit your household? And this is really just to help the survivor and advocates identify a holistic picture of someone's financial stability and develop a plan. You may be wondering, how does domestic violence impact financial security? And the short answer is so many different ways. I included a few in this presentation that I think we hear about most often, and those would be housing instability, employment instability, educational barriers, credit implications. They may have legal implications or medical or health concerns, all of these as a result of domestic violence. And these can have both short and long-term impacts on survivors' lives, their safety, and their financial stability. So just to dive in a little bit deeper and provide an example of how domestic violence may impact someone's financial security. Let's say that there's a domestic violence incident that happens. This person is unable to work for a few days, so their wages are lower than usual. They are not able to pay their rent. This results in an eviction, though some of these are both short-term impacts on survivors' lives. An eviction may also be considered a long-term impact, as that will stay on a survivor's credit and on their credit report for up to 7 years, meaning that this is a barrier for the next 7 years for the survivor and their household. So what tools and resources can advocates use to support survivors in their economic justice work? Just a few examples that I've included on the screen here include the All-State Moving Ahead curriculum. Violence Free Colorado has also developed a financial needs intake, and Violence Free Colorado has also published an economic justice handbook to support advocates in their economic justice work with survivors. At the end of this presentation, I'll provide my contact information so that folks are able to reach out if you're interested in any of these materials or resources. I can share those, and we can also have a deeper conversation of what it might mean to implement these pieces in your work. I did want to point to a few more additional financial management and alternatives to financial institutions. So not all survivors are able to access financial institutions or mainstream financial institutions. So I wanted to point out these two particular resources that can be really helpful in those instances. So Inclusive is a nationwide banking platform, and it is an online banking platform with some physical locations here in Colorado. They've got one in Colorado Springs, one in Greeley, and I believe they're also in the process of developing some more. But their mission is to help low to moderate income people and communities achieve financial independence through credit unions. So these are folks that would often not be able to access financial institutions. And then I've also included Chime, which is a fee-free mobile banking option with no overdraft fees. The importance of Chime is that folks have safe, affordable access to a bank account. The downside to that, or the drawback, is that it is best for folks who receive direct deposit rather than cash, or who are doing cash deposits. It is possible to do cash deposits, but you do have a small fee associated with a cash deposit. But another unique piece about Chime is that it helps survivors build credit without opening new lines of credit. So that can be huge for some survivors who have poor credit or no credit as a result of domestic violence. We're going to shift gears a little bit because we're talking about financial empowerment. There's some really interesting new research coming out around alternatives to payday lending and payday lending in general. So some survivors do access payday lending loans to meet their financial needs. And that's because many survivors have urgent financial needs that are not always able to access assistance or support to meet these needs in an urgent time frame. So these loans are often approved immediately and survivors have access to those funds immediately. So they're able to meet that need right away. They may end up reaching out to a payday lending program or organization with high interest rates and quick repayment requirements, which can typically put someone in a worse financial situation than when they started if they are not able to repay that payday loan within those given timeframes. So what the research shows about payday loans, and the organization doing this research is called PEWS, P-E-W-S. Most survivors who access, or individuals who access a payday loan, are accessing about $375, and the interest rate associated with those loans are about 391%. So that's incredibly high. And these loans are actually often used to meet basic needs. They are being used for things like rent, car repairs, food, anything that might fall into those basic needs categories, not things like alcohol or other things that typical grant funds are not able to pay for. So the important piece here is that they are being used to meet basic needs. They typically have a 14 to 20 day timeline for folks to pay back the loan with absolutely zero flexibility. And that is not a long time for someone who is in financial crisis at the time that they're accessing a payday loan. Another drawback to payday loans is that oftentimes the payday loan organization or office asks for collateral in addition to lending the payday loan. And oftentimes these can include things like automobile titles and access to a bank account, which can be extremely dangerous. That means if a survivor is not able to pay back their loan, they could lose their automobile, they could have their bank account garnished, again, putting them in a worse financial situation than when they reached out for the loan originally. And I think it's important to highlight here that the majority of people accessing payday loans are actually also people who are utilizing some kind of method of banking with a financial institution. And the reason that that's important, and the reason that I'm bringing this to the presentation today, is because there are some Colorado banks offering alternatives to payday loans that also meet some of those urgent needs. So US Bank, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America offer customers small loans in amounts of $100 to $1,000. They cost approximately 15 times less than payday loans overall, and they have much lower interest rates with longer periods for repayment. Like payday loans, these loans can be approved immediately to meet the urgency and need for funds, which again, folks are accessing payday loans for that urgency and immediate approval and access to financial assistance. And these different banks look at account history, and some do look at credit scores, but not all. The specifics of what each bank looks for when lending these particular loans looks different across banks. So I encourage you to reach out if you have one of these banks in your community and learn more about that. If you have any questions or you're interested in any of the materials that we mentioned today in this presentation, please reach out to me, Lindsay Christopher, at lchristopher@violencefreeco.org. This can be to discuss any of the Allstate curriculum, financial needs assessments. If you're curious about payday loans, or you have questions about Chime or Inclusive and how these might work with survivors in your program and accessing services, I'd be more than happy to support you and have some deeper conversations around this in the future. Thank you for taking the time to sit through this presentation, and I hope that you all gain at least one nugget of information that you are able to take with you in your journey along survivors. Thank you.